We'll be getting in and out of the
Start rolling right off the top.
That would be more stressful.
All right. Good morning, everyone. We're going to begin. So my name is Bill Leahy. I'm the president of the University of King's College. Welcome, everyone, to the University of King's College. And I want to welcome you all to this environmental issues debate. On behalf of the Ecology Action Center, ECLA, which is the East Coast Environmental Law Organization, and the Sierra Club Canada Foundation, the Atlantic chapter. I want to start by recognizing and acknowledging on behalf of us all that we conduct this debate on unceded Mi'kmaq territory. And we should remind ourselves that we have the opportunity to do that, and that we share the bounty of this land because of the treaties that the Mi'kmaq people and the British Crown entered into many hundreds of years ago, and continue to be the basis of our society and the basis on which we continue to receive guidance, inspiration, and leadership from the Mi'kmaq people, in particular on environmental issues. I'm going to outline the rules for the session, which will be just about as exciting as it sounds. You will note that there are no campaign signs in the theater. This was one of the rules that everyone agreed to. A soft but important rule: we ask you to keep applause to a minimum. Don't know exactly how I'm supposed to police that, but I will do my best. But this will allow us to get through the questions that we would like to get through in this debate. The timekeeping is going to be very, very important and brutal. Okay, so our timekeepers are over here to my right, where they all our guests can see them. Timekeepers will flash a white card when candidates have 20 seconds remaining, a yellow card when candidates have 10 seconds remaining, and a red card when the candidate must stop. And the red card will indeed mean stop, not that you can finish the sentence that you're on. This is the only way that we can maintain as much consistency as possible.
Do you have a bell or siren?
I wish I had a button so I could turn off your microphone or something like that. But in the absence of that, I'll do my best. Maybe I'll just go over and remove your microphone or something. Now, our candidates on my far right, and they will be answering questions in this order, is Ian Rankin of the Nova Scotia Liberals, the candidate in Timberley Prospect. Next to Ian is Lisa Roberts from the Nova Scotia Democrats, the candidate in Halifax Needham. Jessica Alexander is next, coming towards me. She is the deputy leader of the Green Party of Nova Scotia. And Robert Batherson, on my immediate right, is the candidate in Halifax, Citadel, Sable Island for the Nova Scotia Progressive Conservatives. My apologies. That could not happen to any of you. Okay, so we're going to get into the questions now. In the first segment of the debate, we've allocated 25 minutes for these questions and these answers. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer these questions. Am I right on that?
Wait.
No. Oh yes, I'm sorry. My second mistake. Okay, we're going to have 2 minutes of opening statements, and then we'll be going to the questions. Okay, so the first speaker will be Ian on my far right. So 2 minutes, Ian, for your opening remarks.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me here, and we want to thank all the participants and sponsors that have helped put this together. You could perhaps turn up the mic a little bit. Start my 2 minutes over, please. Okay, our government has been attempting to open itself up in a number of areas and be transparent. The environment and how we formulate public policy is part of this transition. We are the first government to put forestry harvest maps online. This is a good thing. While I recognize there are elements of this process that can be improved, it has resulted in changes to harvest locations. It has resulted in more public dialogue, some of it not always positive, which I believe is welcoming, and I want to commend the many organizations who have kept current and vigilant by signing up for notifications to keep the government and the approval process accountable. There is a great success story about innovative forestry technology startups called Woodscan Technologies based in Mahone Bay. And they've used data from the Nova Scotia Open Portal to help manage our forests sustainably while creating new value and new services for Nova Scotians. That is the role of government, which is to try to allow the private sector to lead the way while creating the conditions to enable that. I'm pleased to see movement towards more land protection. And if we are re-elected, I know you will see more of that. This is important for future generations, protecting our water tables, essential wildlife corridors, and sustainability of the ecosystem. Timberley Prospect is situated around many areas of protection, which past and current governments have enabled. I would go through and list them, but I know many in this room are aware of them. We can do more to improve connectivity of our recreational land and land of ecological significance, linking active modes of transportation, promoting livable communities, and working with municipalities such as HRM for initiatives like the Halifax Green Network Plan with our HRM Alliance. Thus far in this provincial campaign, the Nova Scotia Liberal Party is the only one to announce some tangible, strong steps to enhance the protection of our environment. Specifically, we will create...
Okay, Ian, stop, please. We're going to have to ask for the camera person to leave because I don't believe either. I know I can't see the timekeeper. We want to make sure the candidates can see. Okay, Lisa, you're up.
Hi, my name is Lisa Roberts. I was elected just last August in a by-election in Halifax Needham. I, full disclosure, have been a member of the Ecology Action Center for longer than I've been a member of the New Democratic Party. But that's partly because I was for many years a journalist. So I worked at CBC Radio and elsewhere in the CBC off and on for many years. I am really proud to represent the New Democratic Party and particularly put forward our environmental positions. Many of the commitments in our platform, which was released in its entirety yesterday, actually harken back to commitments that we made and processes that were started by the New Democratic government from 2009 to 2013. But we're also committing to new measures, including adding a food security mandate to a renamed Department of Agriculture and Food, working towards creating a carbon neutral government, and then also reinstating the clear cutting target. And I'll look forward to talking about some of those things in more detail in the course of this debate.
My name is Jessica Alexander. Can you hear me? No. Can you hear me now? Yes. My name is Jessica Alexander. I'm the Deputy Leader of the Green Party of Nova Scotia and candidate for Hammonds Plains Lucasville. I'm really happy to be here as well. I'm good to see so very many faces. I tend to not use up all of my time, but I don't know if that means I can bank it for the end of the debate or not. We are placing immense demands on the planet's resources, and Nova Scotia is absolutely no different. We are ranked 11th per capita in the world of consumers of the Earth's resources. If everyone in the world lived like Canadians, lived like Nova Scotians, we would need 3.7 planets to meet our needs. Clearly, this is not sustainable. We can make different choices. We can explore the use of clean energy options. We can end our practice of burning coal to fuel our unsustainable lifestyles. We can design our communities to be less reliant on cars and roads and more accessible by pedestrians, cyclists, and transit users. We need to examine our personal and collective practices and make decisions, including electoral decisions, based on a preferred reality of sustainability. One of my favorite quotes is a Cree saying, "When the last river has been poisoned, and the last tree has been cut, and the last fish has been killed, it will only be then that we will understand you cannot eat money."
Hi everybody, I'm Rob Batherson. Can you hear me? Yes. In addition to being on unceded Mi'kmaq territory, I'd like to welcome everyone to the wonderful constituency of Halifax Little Sable Island. We're south of Coburg Road, and full disclosure, I have a visual impairment which precludes my peripheral vision. So if I miss our timekeeper, I'll try to veer right, but which might be a natural spot, even though I'm seated left, running as a progressive conservative. Former MLA for this area, Terry Donoghue, the late Terry Donoghue, I had the privilege of working with 20 years ago, once said he couldn't clear his throat in 10 minutes or less. So I will try to keep this to 2 minutes, but in terms of substantive policy positions, I think we're going to all advocate for those in terms of the Q&A, so I look forward to talking about that. But to help you get an understanding of the kind of candidate I am and the kind of MLA that I want to be, I actually agree with many of the individual policies that the other parties are here. And I think it's important that in this election, particularly if we end up with a minority government, that we consider the kind of MLAs that we elect to that legislature. And we need MLAs who are collaborative. We need MLAs who can reach across the aisle and find good ideas that even if they aren't necessarily in my platform or Lisa's party's platform or Jessica's or Ian's, that we can find ways to work together in that next legislature to have a sustainable life here in Nova Scotia. Many times people ask, how can you be a progressive conservative and be supportive of the environment? And I point to our party's vision, mission, and value statement, which states that we see Nova Scotia as an economic, social, and environmental leader for people to follow. Equally, economic, social, and environmental. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we're now going to move into the questions, which all the candidates have had a chance to see in advance. The first responder to the question will have 1 minute to respond. Then all the other candidates will have 45 seconds to respond or rebut. So the way the time signal will work is for the first speaker, you'll get a white card when you have 40 seconds. When 40 seconds have elapsed, a yellow card when 50 seconds have elapsed, and the red card is at 1 minute. And then all other questioners, it's at 25 seconds, there's a white card. At 35, there's a yellow card, and then 45 is the red card.
It's a lot of cards, Phil.
It is.
Okay.
Okay.
2010 is 0.
So, Ian, you're going to start us off with the first question. Do you agree that every Nova Scotian has a right to clean water and unpolluted air? And will you commit to adopting a provincial environmental bill of rights?
Thank you for the question. And I'll start by saying that Nova Scotia has strong relations in place to protect protect citizens in terms of fresh drinking water. The Environmental Act itself has strong stipulations within it, and they're all rooted in fact and science. And we already do have two bodies that provide additional oversight to make sure we're following that act, and that's with the Auditor General's Office and the Ombudsman. The government will build upon our record of transparency and ensure we're taking every possible action to improve that transparency. And I will mention that we've taken advantage of federal provincial cost sharing programs. Recently announced we'll be supporting water and wastewater projects for 10 communities through the Provincial Capital Assistance Program. So this program allows the province to contribute funds directly towards high-cost priority municipal infrastructure projects. Projects receiving funding in 2017-18 includes upgrades to technology at pump stations, water towers.
Stop. Lisa.
The New Democratic Party tabled an environmental bill of rights in the legislature last spring, just actually weeks after Jerry Burrell became our new leader. And it includes a guarantee to clean air and clean water for Nova Scotians. It also includes a provision for creating a new independent commissioner of the environment to be the body that communities and individuals can come to when they're not receiving the information or not feeling like they're engaged in the processes that are fair to protect their environment. It also includes provisions for much greater transparency of information. All environmental information on projects would be available for citizens.
Thank you. Jessica?
Yes.
Thank you.
As promised. No, I won't be quite that brief. We absolutely support a provincial environmental bill of rights. Ontario has had one for almost 25 years. It has not prevented water catastrophes, as evidenced by Ottawa, Piscat, Walkerton, and other things that have happened in the meantime. It does put additional tools in the hands of the population. We may disagree on how this would be implemented because Greens typically do not want to solve problems with bureaucracy. We find that inefficient, expensive, and slow. And we would rather put tools in the hands of the court. So an environmental bill of rights would give citizens the right to actually sue the government for mismanagement of resources. And that is actually the ultimate democracy.
Jessica? Thank you. Rob?
The PC Party of Nova Scotia believes that every Nova Scotian has a right to clean water, clean air. We believe that big polluters should be penalized when they break the law. We do believe in extremely strong enforcement. Our party, through the leadership of our environment critic, Carl McFarland, the MLA for Pictou West, tabled a detailed Clean Air Act under which many of the rights provisions called for were covered off. We would certainly bring forward that Clean Air Act, along with being open to any potential amendments that other parties could bring to the table to make our existing legislation even stronger. So I encourage you to read our Clean Air Act. It was Bill 38 last fall, but certainly we believe that we need a stronger approach to environmental protection. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Question 2. So Lisa, you will be the first answer to this question. Will you work with provincial, federal, and indigenous leaders in the Atlantic region to call for an arm's length ocean planning process in the Gulf of St. Lawrence and immediately declare the areas, including Sydney Bight, under the jurisdiction of Nova Scotia, off limits to oil and gas until such a review is done.
So the NDP position is that elected governments are charged to be the regulators of the oil and gas industry. So of course, we are committed to working with stakeholders, including across different levels of government, to protect our ocean resources and our marine environment. The NDP has a position specifically of creating a no drilling buffer zone around Georges Bank and Browns Bank, of having a capping stack available within hours, not within days of any drill, of prohibiting disbursements which aren't shown to actually help our environment following a spill, and to impress and let the industry know that we don't want oil to be sunk down to permanently be in the ocean environment, but rather to be removed from the ocean.
Thank you. Jessica.
Green Party of Nova Scotia would absolutely want these reviews and strategies in place before allowing very sensitive areas such as Sydney Bight, which is an ecologically diverse and important spawning ground for Atlantic cod. We further believe that investment in offshore oil and gas will not move Nova Scotia away from fossil fuels towards a secure energy strategy. And so offshore oil and gas, although has some legitimate purposes, is large steps in kind of the wrong direction. And so whatever we can do to make sure that we're managing resources with the ultimate ecological wisdom is our goal.
We believe we can have world-class environmental protection here in Nova Scotia. We can work with our federal partners to make sure that no action is taken that would compromise our environment. And we've seen examples where different parties can come together to achieve environmental protection. Our former MP, Megan Leslie, worked very successfully with a federal conservative government not known for being pro-environment to make sure that we had Sable Island in this constituency designated a national park with full environmental protection. I know there were some concerns about that through the legislative process, but there is no reason that we can't find good ways to work together across the four party lines for environmental protection related to our oceans.
Thank you. Ian.
Thank you. We do have a strong working relationship with the First Nations in Nova Scotia and our federal counterparts. We're committed to meeting with these groups, and a re-elected Liberal government will leverage these relationships to ensure that we are protecting our offshore adequately, but we're not in a position to prejudge the outcomes of those meetings. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. So next question, Jessica, you will be the first to respond to the question. Reads as follows. Will you commit to reduce emissions by 50% below 1990 levels by 2030? And how will you achieve these targets while strengthening the green economy?
We would begin by ending the coal-fired power generation that Nova Scotia seems so hopelessly addicted to. We would institute feed-in tariffs to feed the grid with guaranteed power prices for solar, wind, and tidal. We did have such a program in Nova Scotia, and it was so successful that it was canceled a year and a half ago. We would help homeowners increase the energy efficiency of their homes, subsidizing efficiency renovations, particularly for lower-income Nova Scotians. We actually have a policy passed by our membership that renters need to be part of that, because in home ownership and home renovations, renters are often left out and are paying higher prices because of lack of efficiency. We would support the transition to renewable energy sources, create a strategic heating load reserve for heating emergencies while we transition towards sustainable heating sources, and require improved energy efficiency in new provincial building constructions to meet the most current.
Please stop. Rob.
So the Environmental Goals and Sustainable Prosperity Act that was passed under a PC government with the support of the NDP and the Liberals has now been in place for close to a decade. And starting with the Environmental Goals and Sustainable Prosperity Act, complemented with the hard caps that were introduced by the previous NDP government, we've been able to achieve significant progress in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. By working together, we're the only province in Canada that has met our current targets. In terms of new hard caps, the PC Party believes the best place to address that is through a new review of this 10-year-old legislation so that we can strengthen it and set more aggressive goals beyond the 2030 period. We need to think about the next generation, not just this generation, and do it in a consultative way.
Ian.
Thank you. And as Rob mentioned, we have met the target, and we're on track to meet the 40% reduction target by 2020. As you know, we've committed to a made in Nova Scotia solution for reducing greenhouse gas emissions through the new cap and trade system. We're going to try to do this at a balanced approach that protects the pocketbooks of Nova Scotians. The feed-in tariff program is mentioned. During that time, power rates escalated by 30% for 4 years. So we believe that we have to have a balanced approach. And we do believe the emission reduction should be in legislation, but there's more work to do with full consultation with Nova Scotians to determine what that standard should be.
Thank you. Lisa.
Well, as the other speakers have already mentioned, the hard targets that we have achieved in Nova Scotia were brought in by the new Democratic government. We commit, if we're elected, to working with the community, working with stakeholders to determine what the next hard target should be, and introducing that into legislation within a year. We do not agree that the best path forward was what the Liberals did, which was to just axe confit, which was largely responsible for us accomplishing those targets. And we believe that we can work both to transition to a green economy by creating jobs and being redistributed, ensuring that there's more equality.
Okay, Rob, you will go first on the next question. Will you include wildlife vehicle collision prevention in a revised provincial road safety strategy and commit to analyzing the impact of highway twinning and large infrastructure projects on wildlife?
I'll borrow the style of my friend Jessica and give a yes and keep it short and sweet so I don't get in trouble with timekeepers. But I think there is a broader question in terms of highway twinning. Obviously, there is a need for twinning around the province. We have committed to significant investments in that infrastructure. But I think political parties, all of us, need to do a better job in terms of finding a larger role to invest in public transit. I am a public transit user because of my condition, and there are many others who depend on public transit. And, you know, I'll give Ian's party credit. They were the first party in decades to actually make an investment in public transit. I would argue that level of investment is too small compared to other provinces. So we've got to step up. And one thing that I will do if I get the privilege to be the MLA of for this seat is be a strong voice for public transit and urban issues.
Okay, Rob,
in my party.
Ian.
Part of the process when you're twinning highways is an environmental assessment, and within the environmental assessment there is a component of public consultation, which is important. And as early as last week, there was a registration of the Highway 101 twinning from 3 mile plains to Falmouth project. So they will be looking at the potential impacts of the wildlife. We also committed to $30 million for safety measures for the roads and the highways specifically. So the Liberal government will ensure that the infrastructure department includes wildlife vehicle collision prevention as one of those safety measures to consider.
Lisa.
I'll say ditto to Rob's yes, but also pick up on some of his other ideas. There is currently a mismatch and a lack of communication and consultation and real collaboration between the province and the municipality. You have Halifax trying to plan and design for a more sustainable, greener city, and at the same time we had this government placing a major health infrastructure project in Bears Lake Industrial Park, where the traffic is as bad as downtown and you can't get there by transit. That is idiotic. Thank you.
I didn't say that.
Jessica.
The Green Party of Nova Scotia believes that road investments shouldn't even be made until the roads we have are adequately maintained. And we would also want to include wildlife vehicle collision prevention, wildlife protection on untwinned roads, because the concrete barricades that block small wildlife from crossing ends up in a large amount of roadkill, and most of that I think is preventable with the proper strategies. We're smart people in Nova Scotia, and I think we can find out a way to put holes in the bottom of our concrete barriers.
Great, thank you. Okay, Ian, you're first again in terms of responding to the next question. Okay. So the question reads as follows. Will you implement the commitments in the natural resources strategy, including the reduction of clear cutting to no more than 50% of all forest harvesting and reform of destructive forestry practices?
Thank you. Over the last few years, we've heard from a lot of people about the process to map out and find areas that involve clear cutting. We've heard from many people when we post the maps online. We've had good feedback and some constructive feedback. We've brought groups in, I've brought groups in. It's resulted in deferral of some of the land that we were looking at clear cutting. The natural resources strategy referenced had no consensus in it. So what we're committed to doing is hiring an independent person to come in. They will actually review all the forestry practices, including this report. And until this review is complete and Nova Scotians are satisfied with the conclusion, there will be no long-term uses on Crown land. No side, whether it's industry, environmental groups, should be concerned about this transparent and unbiased review. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa.
There is not going to be consensus because change is difficult as we move towards a greener future. The natural resources strategy engaged hundreds of Nova Scotians over years. The work that was done was good. We commit to moving forward with it, including actually implementing or re-implementing the 50% clear cutting target. What we've seen over the last number of years is high volume, low value use of our forests. That is the opposite direction that we need to go in. So absolutely the NDP is going forward with that target.
Thank you. Jessica.
The Green Party of Nova Scotia wonders why 50% of all forestry harvesting being done by clear cut would even be allowable in the first place, since we know the dangers of The Green Party of Nova Scotia questions the current government's practices of allowing private forestry companies to spray glyphosate on Crown land. This is a Monsanto chemical, otherwise known by And when clear cutting, it destroys soil ecosystems, causes erosion and loss of biodiversity. Why would we tolerate it at all?
Rob.
I was campaigning along the Northwest Arm last week and had a former New Democrat who likes what Ian's party's doing on teachers sort of put a pox on at least 3 of our houses, so she made me an accessible vote to your candidate, Jessica, about how we haven't responded to the recommendations that have been made by a series of reports. The PC party government is committed to review on what is an acceptable level of cutting on Crown land. We will invest in silviculture and focus on live sport, and we'll have appropriate environmental oversight.
Thank you. Okay, so we're now going into a different set of questions. These are intended to be more focused questions. They're intended to be more informational. They're about what is or is not in the platform of the various parties. Each speaker will have 30 seconds to respond. And so the white card will indicate 10 seconds have elapsed, yellow card 20 seconds have elapsed, and the red card obviously 30 seconds have elapsed. So Lisa, I think we're starting with you. You're next in the rotation. The first question is, will you commit to introducing a Coastal Protection Act within 18 months of getting into office?
Yes, a lot of this work was done. It wasn't completed under the NDP government. We will engage with stakeholders such as the Ecology Action Center to develop legislation.
Thank you. Jessica, just give our timekeepers a moment, ready to go? Yep. Okay, Jessica.
Yes, we would. We are at risk due to climate change, but we would add to that action on climate change must accompany this policy.
Thank you. Rob?
Coastal protection was covered under the Clean Air Act that Carl McFarland tabled last fall, Bill 38, so we would certainly bring that forward within 18 months of a PC government being elected. And if there are amendments that the other parties can bring forward to make those protections stronger, we would certainly consider them in the interest of all party cooperation.
Thank you. Ian?
Yes, we did announce that we are committed to this act. And in fact, work has already been done to complete detailed mapping throughout the area, but we will be consulting with various groups and municipalities to ensure that we get this legislation right.
Thank you. So Jessica, you're up first for this next question. Will you remove the exemption for quarries less than 3.9 hectares from the environmental assessment regulations?
Short answer to that is it depends. How small would we want to go? How is a quarry defined? What are the issues? This is not a simple yes or no question. This is something that would require in-depth study and expert opinion.
Well,
I agree with Jessica.
we're having a very efficient debate. Ian?
I actually agree as well. I do think we need a thorough review to modernize the act. It is outdated, and we need to look at how we're identifying where quarries go and how we improve them.
Thank you. Lisa?
We haven't decided on that step at this time, but believe that the Environmental Bill of Rights, which is part of the NDP's platform and which we tabled in the House last spring, goes some distance towards addressing the concerns of residents, allowing greater, full, transparent access to information about projects and ensuring a greater role for Nova Scotians in decision making.
Thank you. Rob, you're first on the next question. Will you commit to investing in an intertie between Nova Scotia and New Brunswick that will enable us to shut down 80% of our coal-fired plants by 2020?
We do not have plans to make that investment. Personally, I would have to see the business case and costs behind that. I'm certainly interested in having a discussion, but it's not within our platform to make that level of investment.
Thank you. Ian?
What I can say is that we've had discussions with our provincial neighbors and the Trudeau government, but I can't make any commitments. We will continue to have those discussions and see what that looks like for Nova Scotia.
Lisa?
The NDP has a proven track record of imposing hard targets for greenhouse gas emission reductions and then pursuing various strategies to accomplish those targets. So working with neighboring jurisdictions is one of the strategies towards accomplishing a hard target.
Thank you. Jessica?
Green Party of Nova Scotia stands for doing anything to end coal-fired power generation. As of 2014, 60% of this province's energy production was derived from coal. New Brunswick's was 13. And so if partnership is going to be effective, then that's what we'll go.
Thank you. So I want to say before I read the next two questions that I had nothing to do with writing either of these questions. Just in case anyone who knows my background think I had anything to do with either of these questions. So the first question is, will you reinvigorate the Environmental Goals and Sustainable Prosperity Act, EGSPA, through a public process and establish new goals, including required local food procurement for all provincial government institutions? And Ian, that question is to you first of all.
I will say that I do think that the EXPA strategy was a good one, and the credit is reserved to the former BC government. But it does need a review. We can set new goals. We can start to look towards a greener economy strategy. Specific to the food procurement, I know that's up for negotiation November 2018. We will look at that. We do have to be careful that we're not inhibiting our growers here from exporting to other provinces because we do depend on exports. So we will look to expand using local food, but we do have to be.
Ian, stop, please. Lisa.
Yes, it's been 10 years. This is an excellent time to have a really engaged public conversation about where we've come, what we've accomplished, and where we want to go next. Part of the NDP platform is to create a marketing board to help local producers sell, particularly through public procurement, to provide food for our hospitals, our community colleges, our schools. Also, there's been a huge development in social enterprise across the province that are working with that triple bottom line of, social goals, environmental goals, and economic goals. I think.
Please stop. Jessica.
Yes, and we would want to add to that a local food security act, ensuring local markets for locally produced agriculture, and ensure that our local agriculture industry is also sustainable. This measure was passed in New Brunswick and presented by the lone Green Party MLA in that province.
Thank you. Rob.
Yes, it's time to modernize the Environmental Goals and Sustainable Prosperity Act to get us ready for the next 20 years to reduce our dependence on carbon-based sources of energy. We've made some progress. We have a ways to go. It's extremely important that we include all Nova Scotians in that discussion. We respect our treaty rights, and I will certainly urge Jamie Bailey this spring to appoint a visionary, progressive, collaborative Deputy Minister of Education to oversee that effort.
Thank you, Rob. Good luck.
It'll be tough to find something.
Now, the next question, Lisa, you will be first. Okay. So, will you commit to opening up the Fisheries and Coastal Resources Act to implement the regulatory framework for agriculture recommended in the 2014 Dole-Leahy report?
Yes. The NDP government established the Dole-Leahy panel and fully accept its findings. We're committed to implementing, and we've called on the Liberals in the House to do so.
Thank you. Jessica.
Yes, we would. The regulatory framework is largely federal, but we do what we can to ensure aquaculture, shellfish, and finfish is safe for ecosystems. I would like to remark that open net feedlots are problematic due to sea lice and the antibiotics that treat them, and the NDP government gave $25 million to Cook Aquaculture. Just saying.
Thank you. Rob.
We would review the recommendations of the Dole-Leahy report on a case-by-case basis and implement certain recommendations when we're appropriate.
Thank you. Ian.
Thank you. We've implemented almost all the recommendations from the Dole-Leahy Aquaculture Report. We've also gone above and beyond the report to appoint an independent aquaculture review board who will use evidence-based approach to decide on any new sites or major changes to any sites. We have among the most stringent regulations for this industry in the country, and there's now a ministerial advisory panel that includes groups such as the Ecology Action Center. Thank you.
Thank you all for those questions. We have one more prepared question before we turn to audience questions. I'd like to invite treaty rights holder Michelle Paul from the Spa-Megan-Nagadi district to deliver our final prepared question. Michelle. Thank you. Come up here, Michelle. Can you help with
call to actions and in the implementation of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People and for Mi'kmaq treaty rights. I would like to know what is your position on the duty to consult Mi'kmaq treaty rights holders, myself, in relation to their cultural and inherent rights to protect our waters and our lands in Mi'kmaq in relation to the Alton gas project.
Let's try who's going first. Sorry.
So this would be Jessica.
We congratulate the Sydney First Nation on their legal victory awarded in January of this past year, that the Alton Gas project was approved in too many stages before the courts intervened. And it should not have gotten that far. And with an environmental bill of rights in place, it would not have gone that far, because they would have been the first people to have been asked if this was a suitable project for them.
Thank you, Jessica. Rob.
Respecting treaty rights is not an option. It's the law of the land. And we have courts to enforce that, whether it's on Alton Gas or any other project. I will respectfully challenge Jessica's point about the Environmental Bill of Rights being able to prevent all cases, because as she admitted earlier in Ontario, it didn't prevent certain issues. So we need to make sure that there's a solid laws in place, that the rule of law is enforced, and that we have our courts there to constantly.
Thank you, Rob. Ian.
Yes, treaty rights are of paramount importance for this government. The Premier himself has put himself out there as early as late as a couple of months ago with the pardon for the Syllaboy case. It's an important landmark. Specific to Alton Gas, we did have extensive consultation over a number of years, which included federal scientists involved in this process. The minister actually added new levels of protections and terms and conditions of approval, which are all binding. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa.
Under the NDP's proposed Environmental Bill of Rights, communities have a say about development that is happening in their jurisdiction, in their community. And for Mi'kmaq people, as I understand from what I learned when I visited the Treaty Truck House and reading a lot about Alton Gas, in that community's view, that was not an appropriate development for that place. And so my understanding of our Environmental Bill of Rights is that you would have the right. You would have the right.
Thank you very much, Michelle. So it's now a turn of members in the audience to ask questions. How many microphones do we have, Gabby?
Just one.
Just one?
Be patient.
Okay, and Gabby, who's just stood up, is the microphone holder. So you have 30 seconds to ask your question, and I will ask you to stop if you get to the 30-second mark. And then each candidate will have 30 seconds to respond to that question. Each candidate will have 30 seconds to respond to that question. So just a reminder to you, if you're asking a question, look over here in the corner. You see the yellow card. You know you have 10 seconds left. So Gabby, I think the first arm I saw was right over here.
The province of Nova Scotia has something that's little known. It's called the Environmental Trust Fund. It's so little known that it's only recently that we in the environmental community have become aware of its existence. There are some $385,000 in the fund, and the Nova Scotia Environmental Network has pursued the possibility of accessing the fund. The current government said they can't afford to administer the fund, so no, there's no possibility of access. And when asked, and they refused to do anything.
What is the question?
The question is, what would your party do to grow the Environmental Trust Fund and make it accessible to the environmental community?
Okay, thank you very much. So just let me check my notes here. Jessica, I think we're back to you starting off, okay?
You've already indicated part of the problem by calling it little known. So that would be the first step, is to fix that problem. Little known would be the ultimate, you don't keep your natural assets and your drive to preserve them a secret from the people with the highest amount of interest in them.
Okay, Rob?
My style of leadership is to consult with those who are most effective and get to action. And so as MLA for this area, I would certainly champion whatever cause needs to be championed so that you get some positive response from government. In terms of our platform, we want to build on this little known fund by getting it better known by working with the environmental movement, but also bringing forward an environmental reclamation community enhancement fund so that we can help communities not only remediate and
Thank you, Rob. Ian?
To be frank, I haven't heard of this fund, but as an MLA, I'd like to know about it because part of our job is to ensure that we're connected to community groups so that they access these types of funding. And I can think of a lot of organizations that I work with that would like to know about that. So I'll make it my mission to find out what is there. I assume it overlaps a number of governments, not just ours, but I'll certainly look into that fund.
Lisa?
My immediate background before I became an MLA was working in the nonprofit sector, and it strikes me that there's many nonprofit groups that have a track record of collaboration, for example, in hosting this debate today, that might be able together to administer that fund and not find it a burden. So that's the first thought. That's the first place I go, because government doesn't have to do everything. Government doesn't have to do everything, but we need to partner smartly.
Thank you. So there are hands over here. So we do have ample time for for questions from the audience, which makes it a very positive thing.
I have a quick question. Will your party commit to implementing the protected areas plan that was completed in 2013? There are still many areas that are awaiting legal protection.
Rob?
We would examine the specific recommendations of the protected areas plan on a case-by-case basis. My own background when I worked in Premier John Ham's office was one that worked with communities to increase our level of park protection. For example, in my home community of Lower Sackville, we had land that was owned by the province that was slated for housing development. We felt that was best placed within a provincial park reserve. So we would certainly look at each of the recommendations and determine which can we move forward on.
Thank you, Rob.
Expeditious basis.
Ian?
We are certainly committed to increasing land protection. I know in my specific area, we've increased Terrace Bay Wilderness Area and Blue Mountain Birch Cove Wilderness Area. I'd like to see further protection, especially when it comes to connectivity amongst the different wilderness areas for wildlife corridors and things like that. So I think it's not just an arbitrary number that we should be achieving, but looking at the ecological importance of each specific land. And definitely we're considering more land protection.
Thank you. Lisa?
The NDP government committed to 13% of protected land and 13.9% by 2015, and then 13.9 eventually. I understand that we're stalled right now at 12.4, so certainly we would go back to the plan and implement.
Thank you. Jessica?
Green Party of Nova Scotia wonders why governments consult the public and then do nothing with the information that they have received. We believe in transparency, we believe in community consultation, we believe in good science, consulting experts, and then doing what is the best thing, not just talking about it.
Hi, I have a question on behalf of the Sackville Rivers Association. So there is still a problem with acid rains in our waterways in this province. We have very acidic rocks, and it doesn't buffer like it has in other provinces. There's been a very successful liming project that has been done in one of the rivers in this project funded by the federal government, which has brought back the salmon population and been very effective in that river. Would your government be committing to helping through funding some of these projects to restore our water quality, including liming of rivers?
Thank you. So, Ian?
I would would say that we can consider that as an application through the provincial capital assistance program and see if we can combine our resources with the federal government to look at that specific project, but I'm not in a position to commit to that specific project.
Lisa?
Sort of ditto. I feel like if there isn't a portal within the provincial government where an application for that kind of funding can already be submitted, then it sounds to me like there ought to be. And frankly, it's one of my jobs as a new MLA to figure out where all those different windows are for funding applications, make sure that those bureaucrats are able to do their job unimpeded and not constantly, getting distracted by political change. And then ensuring that the community knows about them.
Thank you. Jessica?
Yes, we would commit to those initiatives. And I also want to applaud the Sackville Rivers Association for the amazing work that they do in my home community. And I do want to point out that the acid rain continues to be a problem. I hope that the work is needed that you're doing, and it needs to continue. So we look for community partnerships as well. That there needs to be funding input, but we love grassroots solutions like the work that you're doing.
Thank you. And Rob?
Yeah, you have the Sackville Rivers Association. I mean, Walter Regan has been a force out there for 3 decades, and Jessica and I have both had our name on the ballot unsuccessfully in that constituency in the past. So to Lisa's point and Ian's point, it would be kind of a qualified ditto that making sure that community groups, and I've been involved in community groups, and it can be difficult when you're trying to navigate those government channels to find out where the sources of funding are. But also, if the criteria prevents funding to take place, we shouldn't just say, well, you can't get funding.
Thank you.
Find a way to change the criteria.
Okay, right back behind you, Debbie. I see your hands.
Hi. Would you support the idea of carbon neutral in Nova Scotia by 2050?
So, Lisa, yes, right.
So part of our platform is to work towards establishing a carbon neutral government. And that is an initiative that has been undertaken in a number of other jurisdictions. I'm not sure what all it means, but I think we have to be doing everything that we can be doing, and frankly, all of it at the same time, as urgently as possible, both at the level of the government and at the level of Nova Scotia society overall. So I think that's a great conversation to have in the context of reviewing the Environmental Prosperity and Sustainability Act. And we have to get ambitious, and we need kind of all hands working on that.
Thank you. Jessica?
I agree with Lisa. I think it's often when you talk to Greens, it is a matter of would you settle for doing too little too late? And so yes, if it's better than doing nothing, no, if we can do more and sooner, I think would be my agreed upon response there.
Thank you. Rob?
Part of setting new 30-year goals under a new modern environmental goals and sustainable prosperity act would be to make a determination as to what the right goal is for a carbon neutral government. But in the meantime, we don't have to wait. We can start making good decisions right now. We need to put a stop and review that Bears Lake deal that contributes to sprawl. We need to stop making decisions like when we moved Access Nova Scotia off the peninsula. And we need strong voices that when provincial government decisions go against HR and planning rules, that we have MLAs who will say no.
Thank you. Ian?
It's an admirable goal. I can't say that we can commit to something like that, but I do know that a big portion of our greenhouse gases are from the electricity sector, and we are on track to cutting those in half by 2030. So there's more work to do, and we do have to balance the considerations of the ability to pay for Nova Scotians, particularly low-income people. And as I said, power rates have skyrocketed 30% under the prior government. There was challenges with the feed-in tariff program. It was heavily focused on wind. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more diversification in terms of solar and some of the other opportunities with clean energy.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Ifo Kede. I'm Isoko from the west coast of Africa. I have a question for you in solidarity with our brothers and sisters who also had the misfortune of being visited by the colonial governments. The question is very simple. Since none of this territory is ceded, would any of you commit to returning the land to the people who are rightful owners and stop pretending like this is 400 years ago when you actually have any rights to this? because everything that Nova Scotia is doing and the government of Canada is doing is a violation of international law. So we're asking you to stop being criminals and we should respect the land and the people.
Thank you. Jessica, I think you're first on this one.
Yes, and we grieve with the indigenous peoples of Mi'kmaq for the historical injustices that we continue to deal with. Everyone in this moment is bound by history, and anything we can do to begin to reconcile the damage that has been done and continues to be done is absolutely what needs to take place.
Rob.
We've done a horrible job in this country of respecting our treaty obligations. It needs to stop. We need to do better. We need to act on what was in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations and get on with it.
Thank you. Ian.
I agree there are a lot of injustices that have happened in history, and one of the biggest scars would have been the Boat Harbor incident. We were the first government to actually look at addressing that, and it actually has teeth because it's in legislation, so there's a commitment by 2020 to clean up that site. Can we do more? Of course we can do more, and there's a good partnership with the various First Nations in this group with our government, and I look forward to continuing to build on that partnership.
Thank you. Lisa.
We are all bound up together, and I often think 7 generations back and then 7 generations forward, and we have responsibilities going 7 generations back on both sides, in my case, in Canada. But also, I have children, and they're going to be, my descendants will be here 7 generations from now. And so I'm really grateful for the leadership and for the hospitality and for, in many cases, the forgiveness and willingness to work together of the Mi'kmaq people.
Thank you. Right behind you, and then over here next in this corner, this gentleman has had his hand up. But right behind you, and then over here, okay?
Glyphosate use in forestry has been causes significant losses of forest biodiversity and has proven to have detrimental impacts on wildlife and human health. Given these the negative effects of glyphosate use, what is your party's policy on the use of glyphosate on private forestry lots in Nova Scotia?
So Rob, you're first on this.
Well, I'm sure I'm going to get into trouble with Raymond for it afterwards in terms of my answer. He's always been good to keep me on the straight and narrow on land policy and forest policy. We need to make sure that however we proceed, that we also need to be respectful of where local woodlot owners are. There are many in this province and many others that derive income in rural areas from that. So we do want to make sure that we have good environmental oversight in terms of products that are safe, but we have to do that in a way that's respectful of our local woodlot owners.
Thank you, Rob. Ian.
As I said before, there are varying views on the forestry practices from industry, officials in the Department of Natural Resources, community groups. A lot of that came out of the natural resource strategy. I do think our government needs to do better to make sure that we're striking the right balance. In terms of glyphosate, I know that there's 12,000 jobs connected directly to the forestry industry, so we need to have both an economic and ecological lens for when we're looking at policy development in our forests.
Thank you. Lisa.
A first step would be to ban the use of glyphosate on Crown land, which is the land that we actually control, and move towards sustainable forestry, particularly recognizing the huge amount of public effort that went into securing the Bowater lands for long-term, sustainable, community-directed economic development.
Thank you. Jessica.
I agree with what Lisa said, and I want to echo the words of Doreen Bernard, who spoke at the protest against Bill 75 and said, how can you own your mother? How can you spray? You think you own the land that you're going to spray. You don't own it. We think we own it. This is a practice that is unknown to the indigenous peoples of Nova Scotia. How can you own your mother and poison her?
I'd like to address an issue that will get you a lot of votes, which is, will your government ban the use of single-use plastic bags? We see in the are on Twinpool, that it works fine. Nobody can do anything about it. They don't complain. They bring their own bags, just as they used to do in Europe. And so we need to have an enlightened government who will ban plastic bags of that type in this province. What will your government do?
Ian, I think you're up first on this one.
I can't personally commit on behalf of the party to that specific. I know we have to do a lot more in terms of banning more items going into the landfill. The HRM's landfill is within my community. I think we need to look at that list. We are a leader in solid waste, which started under the Liberal government in the 1990s. We can do more, and I would certainly look at that because there are things associated with microplastics in the Pacific Ocean and things that, so that is a good idea. I just can't commit on behalf of the party, but I do think it is a good idea to work.
Thank you, Lisa.
Likewise, I can't commit to that. I'd like to see a proposal come forward to expand it from plastic bags to straws and forks and spoons. I think we could start in our school cafeterias, where I just realize that every time I get my kids' DMA show hot lunch, it's being served on styrofoam and with plastic forks and spoons. So we can show leadership in a number of different ways.
Jessica.
I agree with what Lisa said. San Francisco has done it. France has done it. There's no reason we can't do it other than we just like change in this province. But we, of course, would also look at more items than plastic bags. All single-use plastics simply don't make sense, including current cups.
Thank you. Rob.
I generally agree with what everybody else said. Next question.
Okay, so, yeah, did you have a question right there? Then there's a lady right over here who's had her hand up as well for some time.
Hi, 2-3 months ago, the Donkin coal mine reopened for 52 jobs. That mine is scheduled to withdraw several hundred million tons of really dirty coal out of the ground. Who's the right idea? What's brought this about? Everything that I've ever done, all to make this a greener, better place, is being completely negated by this one criminal act of employing 52 people for a few measly jobs that will get us nowhere. And I'd like to know, if the other parties would consider closing this mine if they're ever elected, because obviously the Liberals are.
Thank you. So, Lisa, I think you're first on this.
I'm sorry, I'm feeling a little bit stumped by that because I don't know how the NDP has addressed that. I agree that it's an absolutely concerning development. At the same time, what I'm always aware of when we talk about mining anything in Nova Scotia is that if we're importing the same material mined in another part of the world, I find that just as concerning. And the fact is that we're burning coal in Nova Scotia. So I think that's where I go first, is how do we transition off of coal in Nova Scotia? But I frankly, I'd like to get some more information and get back to you on what we've already said.
Jessica.
Green Party of Nova Scotia is committed to ending all coal-fired burning, and mining it and exporting is just moving the problem elsewhere. But yes, we are currently importing from Colombia, and we're exporting it to I don't know where. I do know that the current government has yet to meet coal that they don't like, and I think the quote by the MLA for the area in Cape Breton was, "We will mine it as long as there's a market."
Thank you. Rob.
Donkin mine was approved through a process that really all three of the conventional parties have endorsed. So if we establish a rule of law with the processes and companies follow the processes, you can't just say we're going to shut it down. So well, you can but if you decide to do that, there are impacts on that. So there is one party who clearly wants to shut it down, and for those who feel strongly for that, you have a good choice.
Thank you, Rob.
Again, I'll say,
Go ahead.
we are trying to strike the right balance, and I do think we need to eventually get off of coal, but we can't do that overnight. The reality is 56% of our energy mix is coal, and that is imported by and large. Should we be using imported coal, or should we be using our own coal during that transition period? There are jobs associated right here, and we as a government are committed to local jobs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nancy Covington, And my question is concerning emerging diseases, probably due to climate change, and specifically in Nova Scotia, the tick-borne Lyme disease problem.
So the question is, what should we be doing about?
What steps would your government do
Okay.
in addressing emerging diseases?
Okay, thank you. Jessica, I think you're up first on this.
The emerging diseases that the Green Party of Nova Scotia is focused on are chronic diseases, and we have an unhealthy population in this province. We do believe in people being out in the woods, being active, and we want to increase that kind of activity. So Lyme disease would actually be something that would be of concern to us. We do not have a current platform plank on Lyme disease in particular, but we are focused on lifestyle initiatives to increase physical activity.
Thank you. Rob?
Progressive Conservative MLAs have championed the cause of those who've been afflicted with Lyme disease in the Legislative Assembly. We need a more dedicated provincial approach to that, and as an MLA, I will join that fight to make sure that we're devoting the resources that we need, not only in terms of treatment, but also prevention.
Thank you. Ian?
Unfortunately, I don't have the right answer to that. Kelly Reading comes to mind. I know she was a big champion of promoting prevention of this while she was in opposition, so I know she's going to be upset at me that I wasn't able to answer that correctly, but certainly we'll look into that. I pulled a tick off this morning off my dog, and I was very concerned about whether or not there'd be Lyme disease. I know the Environment Department does state where they are located in prominent areas online, so we can certainly improve that component of it.
Thank you. Lisa?
I think in terms of directly addressing Lyme disease, clearly a first step is education of patients, often through their primary care provider, and the NDP is very strong on wanting to invest in making sure that we have primary care providers and open collaborative emergency care centers across the province. I think that's an important step. I think we need to address climate change, but we're living it. We're living the reality.
Thank you.
So the most important thing for the sustainability and also general success of all municipalities throughout the province is where the province spends hundreds of millions of dollars on jobs and on new institutions like schools and hospitals, and yet for the provincial government, they don't even consider the impact on cities, on transit, on walking. It hasn't even made the list. What the heck? And both the NDP and the Liberal government have planned to create a framework for deciding where things go so that those things are actually considered, and no progress has been made. What will you do to actually implement that framework?
Thank you. So Rob, I think you're first on this.
Tristan, thanks for the question again. To an earlier answer I gave, it's unconscionable that we moved Access Nova Scotia off the peninsula where it's barely accessible to transit. I know, because as a public transit user, when I had to renew my ID, I looked as to what was the easiest way to get from downtown. And guess what? It was easier to take the 80 out to Sackville as opposed to change at the Mumford terminal, get on the 52, and then land in Bears Lake. So we're compounding that problem with this pre-election announcement without any evidence to put that center in Bears Lake.
Yeah.
There's 45,000 people around a 10-kilometer radius around the Bears Lake site where we're citing that new comparable to a Cobequid outpatient center. There's less than that around Cobequid. The gap for services for healthcare is there. We announced that there still will be outpatient services downtown for people that are concerned about taking a bus. We're the first government, as Rob mentioned, to invest in transit from a provincial level in over 20 years. I think 4 years is ample time to get a bus stop there. There's more opportunities. We're upgrading infrastructure. All the highways connect there. 60% of people that use the VG come from outside of HRM. And I know people personally
Ian,
who pick
thank
up
you.
the Bears like to take them downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa.
In the House when, I'm not sure if it was myself or someone else raised a question. Sorry.
Turn the mic on.
Hello. Sorry, I'm going to borrow your mic.
Just bear with us for a moment. Whoa. Say again.
Go for it.
Can I stand up and talk loudly?
I think you can.
So, in our very brief sitting, the week that the Liberal government introduced their budget, there was a question to the Premier about the decision to place this outpatient facility in Bears Lake Industrial Park. And at one point, his answer was, Mike Savage is the mayor of Halifax. I am the Premier of Nova Scotia. That is what needs to end. We need to be working together. We need to be agreeing that those jurisdictions overlap and the citizens are the same citizens.
Okay, thank you. Jessica?
I agree with Lisa on their approach, that there needs to be collaboration and take it from a citizen's perspective, not a politician's perspective. And by the way, the Copperwood Center in Lower Sackville is on 3 bus routes.
And can be built on.
Okay, thank you. And was on land we already own. No check to develop. Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Corey's just going to use government.
And then eventually in the back corner.
Answer some questions, Ian.
Okay, please. Order. I've always wanted to say that. Please, can you stand up, please?
Make a motion to be heard now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So as a student, I'm concerned about the state of youth employment in Nova Scotia, as many post-secondary grads are having to leave the province to find jobs. So will your party commit to investing in jobs in the renewable economy to keep young people in the province and retrain oil sands workers?
Yes, we do have a youth retention strategy. We are making great strides in that, keeping young people here, specific to transitioning for the people that are working from the oil sands. I'm not aware of anything specific in our platform, but we'll certainly look into that and take that into consideration.
The NDP is announced this week that we'll be making tuition free at the Nova Scotia Community College. It's actually a great level and institution for training young people for jobs in the green economy. So that's one step that we're making. I also think that, agriculture, the average age of farmers in Nova Scotia is like 55 at this point. And we plan to rebrand the Department of Agriculture to be the Department of Agriculture and Food and to have a food security lens on agriculture investment, which I think is another important step.
Green Party of Nova Scotia also wants NSCC tuition free just for Nova Scotian students. However, we don't think we need to be subsidizing students from other provinces. We also advocate a guaranteed livable income, which would allow young people to have a basic income while they explore entrepreneurship, which we think is actually the future, not resource extraction.
Thank you. Rob.
The question was about jobs in the sustainable industry, and one of the benefits of the PC Party's approach to setting up an environmental reclamation community enhancement fund is we will see opportunities come in green industries as a result of our investment in this fund. So let's find ways to put young people to work, because ultimately that is the best way that we can keep more of our young people here instead of seeing them go elsewhere.
Thank you. Currently, the Nova Scotia government, the Department of Transportation, spends about 1% on active transportation, and by active transportation, I mean walking, biking, rollerblading. Would you agree to increase that to 5%, approximately $11 million, which would be both good for the environment and our health? Thank you very much. Thank you. Lisa, I think you're up first on this.
Our commitment at this point is to spend $7 million, which I think would take it to around 3%. I think also we have to work with municipalities and to leverage more funds from the federal government and to allow active transportation investments to sometimes be the determining factor about where money is spent. Right now, active transportation infrastructure is added in Nova Scotia outside of municipal jurisdiction when the highway is something is being done to the highway for the highway's sake.
Okay, Lisa, thank you. Jessica?
Yes, we would support the additional investment in active transportation, but we also would support community redesign, where instead of building our communities around car access, i.e. parking lots, highways, and on-ramps, off-ramps, this kind of thing, that we look at designing communities that are healthy, where we can increase our connectedness, and design communities unlike Dartmouth Crossing and Raiders Lake to be instead pedestrian.
Thank you. Rob?
Mark, one of the things that was pointed out to me on the doorsteps is that as governments are paving and repaving roads, particularly in rural Nova Scotia, despite the photo op around the Blue Route and trying to take advantage of the ecotourism benefits of cycling, we're actually not properly building and rebuilding those roads so that there are sufficient shoulders. So I'm not sure if that covers your question entirely, but I do think as we look at investing in our rural roads and highways, we need to make sure that active transportation is covered.
Ian?
Thank you. I can't commit to the fiscal incremental amount that you're suggesting, but I do think it should be a priority for any government. We have contributed to the Blue Route. I'd like to see more bicycle lanes going to rural areas, particularly rural HRM, which the Blue Route hasn't gone down towards like the 333 section where we could widen out areas for safe modes of active transportation. We have the Connect 2 program through the Department of Energy where trail groups have been able to benefit and improve their trail organizations. And I just heard that there's a $5 million economic boost through
okay,
the rails and trails.
Thank you, Ian. Okay, next question.
What will your party commit to that by the end of 4 years and by the end of 24 years, that the rural communities of Nova Scotia are empowered to develop economically and environmentally sustainable local economies that are tied into the whole province?
Jessica, I think you're first on
I'm
this.
so glad I get to go first on that. We are big proponents of expanding the broadband network. Smaller communities with access to global markets is going to be vital for their survival. So we also want to increase food security and make agriculture hubs, increase distribution networks so that smaller producers can access the Nova Scotian markets as well. And there's numerous initiatives in terms of entrepreneurship and green economy jobs that I could probably go.
Thank you, Jessica. Rob?
3 points. We've got to finish the job in terms of connecting rural Nova Scotia high-speed broadband. It's taken too long under three parties of three governments. So again, not a backhanded endorsement to the Green Party, but we've all had our kick, right? 2 other things, striking an ecotourism task force so that we can take advantage of the fact that we have this beautiful province that can be a whole lot better, but let's take advantage of those benefits so that people can enjoy our natural beauty and hopefully a cleaner environment. And then the third aspect, which I've talked about before, is the community environmental fund. Thank you.
Ian?
Well, I'll cite the IME report. It hasn't been cited yet, but we are on track to meet the goals of what he suggested for help rural communities in terms of export growth and tourism as well. Last year was our best tourism year yet, and we're going to continue to grow that through the golf industry and some other industries to assist our competitive advantages in the area. Exports, we have blueberries, we have other opportunities for value add in terms of the apples, the lobster. We're seeing tremendous growth in our lobsters and exports in China and various places like that. So from the environment standpoint, tidal is a good opportunity. We can continue to look, research, and invest in.
Okay, thank you. Lisa?
I think your question ties in with every other, or many of the other questions that have been asked. I think to the extent that we are still using our natural resources for economic development, we need to be ensuring that we're getting the most out of those jobs, getting the most jobs out of those natural resources that we can. So high value, low volume, and also placement of schools and government offices and active transportation. All of that can create help create great communities.
Thank you, Lisa. So unfortunately, this will have to be our last question. I just want to emphasize that I think the candidates are going to be available outside after the debate, so you can approach them individually if you haven't had a chance to ask your question here in open forum. Gabby?
Hi. One of the key Liberal promises in 2013 was that every Nova Scotian would have a family doctor within 1 year. That clearly hasn't happened. Lynn Harrigan, the VP of Medicine and Innovative Health Services, as of March 5th, herself doesn't have a family doctor. So for Ian, my question is, what happened? And for the other parties, my question is, knowing that we need approximately 100 doctors per year for the next decade to meet that goal, what are the other parties hoping to do to get there?
I don't know, I'm looking for, is there a consensus among the candidates whether we should allow this non-environmental question?
No.
No. So I think we're going to stick to the topic matter and ask an environmental question. You can approach the candidates individually afterwards on, I'm sure that issue has environmental implications, everything does, but we're going to focus on something more directly environmental. Gabby?
Yeah, the other 3 more hands. I don't know who to go to. Who knows first?
You're very close to the woman right in front of you. Right?
I attended the Paris Climate Change Conference, and I listened to our own ministers say there's now $1 trillion worth of green economy that's just been signed because the whole world signed on. So in saying this, and talking about jobs, will you commit your party to go and represent the climate change, every climate change that comes up? Will you go? And have you ever been to a climate change conference?
Okay, thank you. So Rob, you're first on this question.
I'll answer your second question first. No, I haven't been to a climate change conference. And if I'm in government, then yes, and it's my responsibility. If I can't go, I will fight like hell to make sure that Nova Scotia is represented.
Thank you. Ian?
I guess I will echo Rob's comments. I haven't had the opportunity to go to a climate change conference, but I would very much enjoy the opportunity to do that.
Thank you. Lisa?
Ditto. And I just want to say, addressing climate change is going to require societies that have a lot of social cohesion, where people feel like they're all included. And so for me, for the NDP, it's about addressing income inequality and people's opportunities in Nova Scotia at the same time that we address climate change, because we need to do this together.
Thank you. Finally, Jessica.
I would welcome the opportunity, Bill, to go with you to a climate change conference anywhere, so long as my party can afford to send.
So please join me in thanking all of our candidates.
There are a number of other candidates who are in the room. I see my NDP counterpart, Glenn, is here. Any other candidates who are running for office can stand? David
Wheeler, Matthew Ritchie, Jen
Okay. Just thank you for running too.
Okay, thanks. And I want to also ask you to join me in thanking our sponsoring organizations, the Ecology Action Center, ECLAW, the Environmental Law Association, and the Sierra Club of Canada. A round of applause. All of you for being here. This is an impressive turnout in the morning on a work day. Environmental issues are incredibly important. You all know that. That's why you're here. But often they don't get the attention they deserve at the most critical time in our democratic process, which are elections. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Bill.